Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you, like I always do, to transform me to we by doing that thing called dating more intentionally, a little bit better than you used to, and to have a little fun with it as well. Today, I have a very special guest. I know her through my sister, and some of you know who my sister is. I got her married. Maybe I can get this girl married too. Her name is Storey Pryor, spelled Storey, and she's a pretty interesting girl. And we're going to find out all about her history as we're going through the interview. But her history is in big corporate events, huge monster corporate events, and she's an entrepreneur at heart, and she has reinvented herself many, many times. And I love what she has to share with us about how to love ourselves more and to have the courage to be vulnerable. Welcome to the show, Storey Pryor.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I love that we connected a few years back, and just my goodness, it was wonderful seeing you reach out after I had that post the other day. And so I love that you reached out, and I'm so just honored to be here and to share anything of value that I can to you and the listeners, and just to me as well. This has been I'm a daily this is a daily journey for me. So I'm learning every day as we go on.
Well, I'll tell you guys how it happened. I was, playing around on Instagram, and somehow a story comes up on my feed, or my sister told me that she was doing some amazing stuff. And I'm like, what's she doing? So I went to her Instagram and I see this post. You guys, if you're on Instagram, just go see Storey Pryor. She's got this wonderful post where she's busted into tears. She's just totally, like we've all been before, with the tears everywhere. And her beautiful golden retriever, who's at her side right now, was licking the tears off her face. And I was watching it with my husband in the room, so I wasn't even listening to the audio. I was just experiencing this girl crumbling, and I'm wondering, why is she crumbling? Of course, I've been in that spot. This last couple months has been a little rough for me. I've been in that spot, lots of tears. So do you want to tell us what you were crying about that day?
Yeah. Well, and Julie, thank you for sharing that you felt in that spot, because the reason why I did post that is because I knew that there were so many other people that are feeling this way, or feeling, just kind of broken and lost, and what is happening. And so, gosh, I'll try to make it linear as possible and try to connect the dots. But I've been on this journey of loving myself, and a few years back, I didn't really know what loving myself was. I hired a life coach, and he's like, "Story, you just need to love yourself." I'm like, "Does that mean like go get a manicure and a pedicure? Do I go get new pair of shoes?" I didn't really know what loving myself was. And after a few years of healing, loving yourself is really looking in the mirror and loving who you're seeing back. And it's physically, it's mentally, it's loving your thoughts, it's loving how you talk to yourself, it's loving just how you're showing up for yourself in the world. And for the longest time, I felt like I was showing up for other people, as we all do. We all have this kind of persona that we need to live out for other people. And I think my whole life I have been, I'm a perfectionist. I want to look as though I've got everything together. And at the end of the day, none of us really do. All of us, we're all kind of struggling and suffering. And and it's a beautiful thing. We only grow when we have pain and suffering. And a lot of these changes are for us. So, just this past year, I have been very steadfast of loving my body physically. With some of the trauma that I've had, I suffered, just from eating disorder to job loss to domestic violence to rape, abortion. Um, I've dealt with some heavy things in life, and I also too, like, trauma is a very subjective word. Trauma could be us breaking a leg or moving. We can all define trauma differently, but I had some heavy trauma that I didn't know how to process. And so this past year, I was noticing that my body physically was showing trauma. My hair was falling out, my skin was terrible. I knew, I love learning my body so much. And so I just knew physically I wasn't treating my body well. And so I work from home, and I'm just on this constant, journey of finding things that help me, be healthier. And I just started putting ankle weights on my ankles, just to build some resistance, some lean muscle mass, as I work from home and I work around the house. So I've created an ankle weight that's actually it's filled with crystals. So, and I'm a firm believer about crystal energy and frequency. We're all energy, so anything that we emit is energy. And so I created a product, ankle weights that are filled with crystals, and I wear these ankle weights around the house. I wear them to yoga. I wear them to the grocery store. They're cute. They're fashionable. And so, but I'm sharing this because the reason why I posted that kind of behind the scenes scene of me crying is because when I was launching the ankle weights, I knew that I couldn't launch it without sharing my story. Because the reason why I started this ankle weight company, and at my company is called Love Your Story, but the reason why I started this was because of my story. And I was thinking in my head, I can't just, post buy these ankle weights. They've worked for me. I love them. I wanted there to be more meaning and more purpose. And I knew why I started the ankle weights. And so being very vulnerable, sharing your own story is very scary. I love to talk to other people about their story and help if I can and relate. But gosh, it really hit hard when I, hit the post button on my phone and posted my story.
Well,
So
I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was touched and reached out to you. It's validating to know that you can go through something that's really challenging, open your heart, feel the pain, share the pain. It's pretty amazing. Now, one thing I thought was interesting as I was poking around on your Instagram, I saw something about, I mean, here you are, this beautiful woman. I have these amazing photos of you. Are you still at the moment single and unattached, or is there a main squeeze in your life at the moment?
I I am single. I am single.
This is great. So now, if whenever there's a guy who's interested in story, just send them to me, and I will vet them and screen them and qualify them because they have to get to you through me, right? So I have to
You're my
vet.
gatekeeper.
The thing that I thought was so interesting is you voluntarily said on your Instagram that you didn't like your legs.
Mhm.
I mean, I would trade my legs for yours anytime,
Oh
even on the
gosh.
worst day. But tell us about that and what did you do? And I mean, come on. Were you
Yeah,
just
well,
hard on yourself?
on this journey of, loving myself, it's so mental. And if I did this exercise at a women's retreat once where we had to write down all of the things that we say to ourselves every day. So we had like 30 seconds to write down things, and I'm writing, I am old, it's too late to start this, I'm too fat, I don't look well, I don't have the right credentials, I don't have enough money. Like, I'm just writing down all the things that go through my head. And what we had to do was turn to our person to the left, and I had to read this list and speak to this woman next to me as though I'm talking to her like this. So I'm reading to her, you are ugly, you are fat, and I am crying, and she is crying because she's, upset that I would talk to myself like this, and I am just devastated. I can't speak to a woman like this. So why are we allowing ourselves to talk to ourselves like this? And it was just a wake up epiphany moment for me because I have been a horrible person talking about myself. And so when I share I hate my legs, that's just a little mental thing right there where I want to love my legs. I want to love however they look like. Just I'm grateful for my legs. I have legs in the first place. That is just something to be grateful for right there. So when I started the ankle weights, of course, women, we want our legs to be lean and like just the Carrie Underwood legs. I always say because she's got some great legs,
Oh
but
yeah.
going through that exercise of the ankle weights plus just rewiring my brain of, hey, Story, you've said your whole life that you hated your legs. Well, let's change that narrative. I love my legs now. I have big feet. I have size 9.5. My dad was a professional baseball player, so I grew up with like an athletic build, and so I just have these giant feet, and they look like men's feet. And so forever, I'm like, man, I hate my feet. And right now, with me doing ankle weights, I'm posting pictures of my feet online. I'm like putting my feet. I should start an OnlyFans with my feet. No, but I realized the other day, it's like, Story, start loving your feet. I love my dad. So now when I look down at my feet, I'm like, these are my dad's feet. I love my dad. I love that these feet have walked me 40 years. I'll be 41 in November. But I was like, I love that these feet have walked me around. We have done so many great things together. We've had so many awesome experiences. So when you start talking better about yourself like that, my goodness, life just changes. And so that's, just part of loving yourself is how we talk to ourselves. And you can't really change anything in your life unless you start loving the way that you talk about yourself. And
It's
so,
really true story. I don't know how it was in your family, but in my family, certain emotions were fine. Okay. If you were happy, if you were sunshiny, if you were, quiet and peaceful, that was fine. Anger was not okay. Not okay. Any kind of an emotional outburst, not okay. And my mother used to say a million times, she said this to me: smile and the world smiles with you. Cry and you cry all alone. Did anybody ever tell you that?
no, my parents were probably pretty open about us sharing things, and so, but I do know that like we've been conditioned to keep things close. We've
Yeah.
been conditioned, especially from Midwest. I grew up in a strong Christian family too, and so talking about any of your ailments or problems that were happening, I mean that it wasn't what we
So,
did.
so my response to all of that
Yeah.
must have been to put a smile on my face. And
Mhm.
it's my
Yes.
mask, actually.
Yes. Sure.
It's my mask. And so it's unusual for people to see me in any way except for cheerful and sunny and all of that. And
Right.
that's not the way life is.
No, not at all. It's a beautiful thing to have emotion like this. Life, it is daily practice to be happy every day. It's not it because we should be in just a peaceful state. So it's a daily practice to be happy. But with the happy comes the sad. It comes all of there's fear. I mean, we have fear, we have shame, we have guilt, we have disappointment. These are all beautiful things that we can feel. We just need to process them and be able to share them. And so that's why I have really opened my heart, because I'm an open book. If you see me in person, I will share with anyone, but sharing on a social platform where I know that my words are forever and I know that the impact that I have on my words can influence anyone. And so I hold a lot of responsibility for things that I do post, and I want to be so authentic and speak to my experience, because I know that since I've opened my mouth and started sharing my story, so many people have been like, "My gosh, Story, from the outside, you had it all together. Well, I thought you were like you what you dealt with this stuff? No way." I'm like, "My goodness, I didn't feel like I was living authentically, because if so many people are like, wow, Story Pryor has her whole life together. She's she's up top." No, I had hit rock bottom. And I wanted to be able to, and I'm going to continue to share that, because yes, we put on this facade and it was rotting me. I was literally rotting inside, because I had fake hair, I had fake eyelashes, the makeup, all the things that, outward wise can compensate for things. But at the end of the day, I took all of that off. I had to really get down to my roots. I had to really like love myself. And in order for me to love myself was to be myself and look at myself in the mirror. And, I still walk past the mirror and I'm like, who is that? I don't recognize myself, because I've definitely changed a lot mentally and physically. But yeah, just being able to share is so powerful. So I want to
You're,
keep
you're
it up
more,
and encourage anyone.
so you are more a more natural representation of yourself
Yeah.
than 5, 7 years ago on stage. So you're just more real than you were.
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
and yeah, I look at pictures. I go back to my Instagram pictures just in 2018. That's kind of when I started this whole transformation. But there's pictures of me on stage and the big, the dresses and the jewels, And I was hurting inside. I was miserable. And I look at those and I'm like, that smile that I was wearing that day, that's not real. I was so stressed, just so I just wasn't loving who I was. I wasn't living my authentic self. I wasn't. It's not like I was a fake person, but it just like I wasn't being true to what I wanted to do, and I was constantly seeking other people's validation and people pleasing. And it can wear on you,
Huh.
and it wore on me. And I got a health wake up call that was like, Story, if you don't change, you're not going to be here long. And so,
Well, you're a great example of how something bad can happen and you can spin it into something miraculous. Do you want to tell us about what happened when your life turned upside down in 2018?
yeah. So, it's been an accumulation. I kind of connect the dots of how I got to where I was, but yeah, in 2018, I was working. I had been with a company for almost 8 years, and you know, um, an event producer, and on top of a network marketing environment. So it's constant. There's always something to do. There's really you don't take a minute off because things are just constantly moving all the time. But I was traveling around the world. I had an awesome team. We were in over 100 events a year in 16 countries. Our biggest event was 16,000 people. So the stress of a lot of work was there, and I did not know boundaries. I would always say yes to everything. I'm a high achiever. If there was something that I saw wasn't being done, I would just scoop it up and assume that that was my role. I'd never wanted any balls to drop. So I put a lot on my plate. I had a great team, but I was super stressed. But in, yeah, 2018, I working nonstop. One day my boss had texted me, needed me to come in to work early. Our company was doing layoffs at that time, and I remember driving to work and I'm just closing my eyes and like, who am I going to have to let go today? I knew that I was going to have to maybe let go of some people on my team. And I get to the office and my boss was like, Story, grab your things. We're going to HR. And I walk into HR and they said, Story, today is your last day. And I literally I fell into like a corpse of a human. I didn't process that. I blacked out when they said that because I was working. I had been with this company over 8 years, and every single day, I mean, 18-hour work days, I was traveling. My work was figuratively my husband, my kids, my pet, my job. I put my whole life on hold for my job. So when I hear the word Story, today is your last day, I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. And I was just in this trance of like, when you attach yourself to something, and you lose it, you have to rediscover who you are. I forgot what made me happy. I forgot, just I just didn't know who I was, and that was really, really, really scary. And at that time, I didn't have the tools to process it. And we have different ways that we can process grief, and I chose to avoid it at that time because I didn't want to face it. And so I literally I avoided everyone in the event industry. I avoided everyone at work, and I was in such a vulnerable position that I ended up getting in a horrible domestic violence abusive relationship for 2 years. I don't blame the job loss for that, but I blame my state, my mental state. I didn't love myself enough to know that this wasn't healthy for me. And so I was just clinging on to, I love love, and I have wanted to get married and have children. And at that time, I was like, okay, if my job is being taken from me, maybe now I should focus all of my energy and effort into this relationship. And so I was trying to make a very, very abusive, toxic relationship work, and I ended up, it was a very terrible domestic violence, really very abusive, mentally, physically, financially. I'll be sharing more about that in my social media post.
When you're sharing about how you lost yourself, when you lost this job that was 8 years of your life, it occurs to me that a lot of people listening to this podcast can relate to that when their relationship is all of a sudden pulled out from underneath them. Somebody died unexpectedly. Somebody had a disease and we knew they were dying, but they died. Somebody found out their spouse was being less than faithful.
Mhm.
Somehow they got the news that their spouse wanted a divorce. And all of a sudden, there's that feeling of, well, who am I if I'm not this person's spouse?
Mhm.
So I wonder if you can share a little bit about how you managed to pull yourself out of it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't easy, and I will say that. Losing something is very difficult. It's we're not used to losing that. And so when I had my job and I lost that, that was a part of grief that I was just seeking some sort of security, some safety. And jumping into that relationship, it was my form of like getting that safety, that comfort. And I sought that kind of healing in a terrible relationship. But as much as I go through, and granted, I'm still learning, about myself and how I'm still processing that. But the most important thing that I've learned is we're going to go through changes in life, and they're happening for us instead of it's happening to, oh, this happened to me. My husband cheated on me, or my so and so, my husband or my wife left me. These are happening for us. And it's so hard to see it in the time that it's happening, but there's a reason why. And however your belief system is in God and the universe, these are things that this is part of life. And I'm so grateful for all of this, because it has absolutely helped me become the woman that I am today. I have learned so many things. It's been painful, but I'm a better person because of it. I've learned so much. And I think sometimes too, as I look back, I was in this relationship for 2 years, and while very volatile and abusive, and I was scared to leave because of what he would do. Um, there were times when I could have left, and I remember thinking I wasn't strong enough at that time. I had put all of my energy and effort into him, and who would I be without him? I couldn't fathom being alone. I couldn't fathom, I'd worked so hard on that relationship. I was going to do everything I could to make it work. I had endured all of this abuse. I need to just stick with it. And it just takes a lot of self-love, because had I loved myself more, I would never have allowed any of that to happen.
And here
And so
you are managing life without this job that's consumed you completely, without this relationship that you poured yourself into. Something that I think listeners will be appreciative of, women, but also men too. Looking back on that relationship, what were the qualities that you appreciated about him at the beginning? And we know what was bad in the end, but
mhm,
were there things that you ignored that you would encourage other people to pay attention to because of your experience?
100%. And thank you for asking me that, Julie, because I have been reflecting a lot on this as I make my post about this relationship. Earlier on, and I've done so much research on narcissism, and that I didn't know what a narcissist was before I had entered this relationship. But as far as the word love bombing, I mean, it was so overwhelming at the beginning. He had met me when I was on stage, and I think he kind of loved that, like, that idea of me. And so when we met, it was constant love and affection, and it's something that I hadn't felt in a while either. I had never experienced that kind of love with any of the other loves in my life. It was just a different, like our energy, our pull. It was electric. And I was after I got let go, I was in such this vulnerable position. So he was there, and it was like I cling to it. All of the red flags that were there, because there were some, I ignored them. I like painted them green, I think. You make excuses. You
You
make
mentioned love bombing. We know that when there's a lot of love bombing, it's usually a telltale sign. So flowers and showering you with gifts and attention and doing all this stuff. Um, Looking back on it, does it look like that was insincere?
Of course, it was. And the love bombing, my love language is, all I love all five love languages, but mine is well, it was he had painted the picture of us of like saying, "You're my wife, I'm gonna have children with you." And that is what really kept me, because he wasn't the love bomber that would be giving me flowers and gifts. It was the words and more of the potential that he saw for us. And I fell in love with the potential, that picture. And I have a very imaginative brain. So in my head, I was creating this beautiful love story of, my goodness, that I've met my husband and everything's going to fall into place now. And so I continued to build off of this beautiful love story that was happening in my head. And then, of course, he was feeding into it. But at the end of the day, he was out, like, this is a full-blown narcissist. He was out to take as much as he could. He knew that I was a giver. I loved him back. He had moved to and I went to his house and I decorated and furnished and filled the fridge with food. I'm a nurturer, I'm a caretaker, and a lot of women, we love to take care. And I know that we love to go in and, oh, I'll help fix this. That was me. I
Yes,
love.
when I first met my husband, he was in a two-bedroom apartment and it was rented because he didn't expect to be in St. Louis for very long. I don't know if you know this part of the story. He sold me my dating service membership way back in 1990. So he was only in St. Louis for a short time. He was going to launch the company, Great Expectations video dating service in St. Louis, and then
Mhm.
go back to California. But then he met me and he was loving the company and how much fun it was building it. So very quickly, within 5 weeks, we got engaged, and 5 months later, we got married. It must have been only a couple of weeks before I started bringing like paintings to put on the walls and making these dinners and all
Mhm.
this stuff.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
yeah, it was very quick. And I, of course, didn't pay attention to some of the little red flags, and we're still married 34 years. We haven't killed each other yet, but it hasn't been easy, right?
Or
Um,
yeah.
so he loved bombed you by telling you the things that you wanted to hear, but when it came right down to it, he wasn't up to doing any of that.
No, and you have to really pay attention to people's actions versus words and potential. If you're saying something, your actions should prove it. And I was on this. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to do things, and he was just not a healthy person. I mean, he just was not in a good. He didn't have a good group of friends around. He just was not in a very healthy environment. But I kept my blinders on. I had this love story that we are meant to be. That I'm supposed to. This is my husband.
What happened that ended it?
Well, there's so much of the story, and he became very violent, and he ended up stealing from me financially, and I had caught him on a lie, and he ended up hitting me. The police were called. He got arrested for domestic violence the first time, but so over the course of 2 years, he was arrested 4 times. The last time I was working out at a gym, and a gym that had just opened up, and he comes up on the treadmill and he goes, "Story, you can't belong here. I own you. You can't belong to this gym." This man felt like I was his territory. He felt like I was his property. So he wasn't allowing me to go out in public. I was alien. I had lost all of my family and friends. But he loved pleasure and alienating me, so I couldn't be around anyone. But that day at the gym when he said, "I own you," that was like a trigger that clicked off in my head. And that next morning, he ended up breaking through my window, was chasing me through my house, and I called the police the last time, and he was arrested that last time. So while I don't like to say that that is what ended it, I mean, that is what ended it, but I wish it was under terms that I could have been more in control of. And I've been able to process this by I take responsibility. I'm not saying what he did was ever, I don't justify what he did and his actions, but I take responsibility for myself that, I turned a blind eye to those the red flags. I didn't reach out to friends and family for help. I thought I could get out of this on my own. And I was so embarrassed, and the guilt and the shame. I would sleep in my car at nights because he would come over to my house and throw rocks at the window. And I remember actually the last time that he was arrested, the police officer was asking me what had happened. And I said, well, he came over last night, was throwing rocks. And then he came over this morning and he threw rocks and then ran through my back door. And the police officer was like, well, Story, why didn't you call us last night when he was throwing rocks? And I was like, well, gosh, he throws rocks at least 2 or 3 times a week. So I had, what was scary is that behavior became normal for me. His toxic abuse was normal.
Are
And
you safe? I mean, is there, I'm sure you got like a restraining order or something like that so that you can be safe. And did he move on into somebody else's life, or is he
yeah,
leaving?
he's on to another woman, another just his supply. But I filed a restraining order, and it's a forever restraining order. I actually moved. Well, my family had an intervention on me, and they're like, "Story, if you want to be back in our lives, we need you to change your phone number. You have to move. You need to get through counseling." And so my family is everything. And when I lost my family, that was another huge wake up call that I had to make a change. But since then, I've moved states, not because of him, but I knew that being in a close vicinity of his presence, because we lived very close, you're not going to be able to grow. You
Yeah.
can't. And that's if you are needing to make a change in a relationship, you need to separate yourself from that environment as much as possible, because we are products of our environment. And so with me being around even the place that, like, we didn't live together, but even the place that we had spent all of our time together, it triggered all of the memories. It triggered our routine. So I had to remove myself from that environment to get out of it.
We've all been through challenges, but we can do difficult things. Yes,
Yes.
we can. And we can do things that we didn't think we were capable of doing,
Mhm.
especially if there's some cheerleaders. Whenever I've gone through really, really difficult time, the person who's always been there for me is my sister. And my sister. My
Mhm.
sister has the capacity for unconditional love. And I've never seen it anywhere except for her. It's
Mhm.
phenomenal, and she's always there to pick me up no matter what. It's just
Love
absolutely
that.
incredible. Who was there for you when you needed them?
Well, my family is incredible, and I have a strong core of good girlfriends, but
Mm,
I shut everyone out. So because I was so ashamed, I was so embarrassed. I I grew up. I know how a man should treat a woman. I know that I have a very close relationship with my dad. He's my best friend, and so being able to talk to my family about that, I was so ashamed. So it was very hard for me to pick up the phone. My sisters are my best friends. My mom is like my rock. It was very hard for me to pick up the phone and talk to them. And also, my family has never been exposed to something like that. And so they didn't understand. People can say, well, just leave, just go. He's treating you bad, just leave. It's not that easy. You get this emotional connection and attachment, and it's not easy to leave. Until the pain was so painful and so strong, that's when I had to leave.
how long ago was it that you were in the middle of that dark cloud?
That was 2020, 2019, 2020. I remember,
After COVID.
yeah,
Perfect.
and I remember during COVID, I'm like, my goodness, the last 2 years, because I met him in 2018. I was thinking I experienced the year of isolation and COVID before COVID, because I didn't leave my house. We couldn't go out in public together. I was so embarrassed. He would yell at me in public, so we wouldn't do anything out, to be around people. I was alienated. I was a prisoner in my own home. I was a prisoner in my head. So yeah, I felt I lived the COVID before. And then yeah, so obviously COVID for all of us, was a huge wake up call of just finding out what makes us happy. And but it's been a healing journey since, yeah, about 2021. And the healing's never done. And it's not, what I've learned is it's not linear either. There's days where I am like on top of the world, and then others where I'll, go back and I'll reminisce and think, ah, Story, how did you do that? How could you have treated my family this way? Or how, because I take a lot of responsibility for it. A lot of people could say, oh, it's him, and here, I don't play a victim. I really want to take responsibility and ownership for my part in it.
Good for
Um,
you. Good for
and
you. Well, you
Yeah.
are a testament to we can do difficult things.
Yes.
Um, you've been an entrepreneur all of your life, like you've always been an inventor. There was something you did in high school or college, something about a t-shirt. Tell us what the heck was on that t-shirt.
Yeah. So, gosh, I in college, I was the social chair of my sorority. So I just ended up planning events. I love bringing people together. I love making memories. I love helping people laugh and have fun. And so, being a social chair, I was kind of in the circuit of fun. And I'm a diehard Kansas Jayhawk fan. And it was my junior year. Our basketball team is doing so great, and there's also a bar that's down the street from my house called the Hawk. And so I'm University of Kansas Jayhawk. I go to the bar, the Hawk, all the time. So I trademarked the term hawkaholic. So hawkaholic for the University of Kansas, and I put it on some T-shirts because at Kansas, at University of Kansas at that time in college, we wore T-shirts to college to class. I see girls now wearing dresses and wedges, but we wore T-shirts and tennis shoes. And so I put Hawkaholic on a t-shirt and I ended up selling them out of the trunk of my Jeep Grand Cherokee and just slinging t-shirts here and there. And then I get a letter from the University of Kansas, a cease and desist. It was saying that I was infringing on the KU trademark. I was using their same font, and I know how trademark and intellectual property happens these days. So I ended up getting sued by KU, but then I got the license to use Hawkaholic. So I sell Hawkaholic on t-shirts, uh, glasses, hats, keychains. So yeah, that was in college, and I did that to get some beer money, and I love creating things, and so I that's how I express myself. And I love just creating things. My mom started a t-shirt line, a fashion line when I was growing up. My mom and dad are entrepreneurs. Even with the ankle weights, I was like, gosh, there's no cute ankle weights out there. Well, I'll make them. So
I saw you doing the sewing machine and everything.
yeah.
Did not realize that they have crystals. So I'm definitely going to have to get a pair. How do we get our little ankle weights so that we can start loving our legs even more than we already do?
Yeah, so it's love your story. So love your and then STOREY, loveyourstory.com. That's the
Beautiful.
website to get them, or follow me on Instagram, Storey Pryor.
All
But
right.
that's where you can get them. And yeah, I didn't think that ankle weights, I mean, I'm an event consultant, I'm a business consultant. I'm putting on a couple events here in Newport Beach where I live. And I didn't think that this ankle weight it was going to be like a full-time thing for me, but
So today, and I'm going to have to go back and look at your profile. You updated it recently, didn't you, with me?
I think I may need a little bit more. Well, now that I have my new hair, I need to probably get some, or just cut my hair. I don't have, all my pictures are me and my long hair. So I need
Yeah,
to,
so walk your talk, right? We always saying, you got to have current photos. So have some fun, do some selfies, whatever. Um, when I look at, like, I want you to play with your profile and I want you to be mindful about choosing your top three critical criteria. These are the three elements that you need to see in your future partner, and you would rather be single for the rest of your life than partner with somebody who didn't have these three things. Okay, so here we are talking about critical criteria. Would you like to know what you put as your critical criteria on your most recent version of your profile?
yes,
I'm not sure when this was written, but um, yes, humorous was in there for sure. Intelligence, that part was there. And I think what you're adding in now is curiosity, the or growth
right.
orientation.
Yes,
Not just I want to learn about physics, but I want to learn about how to continually become a better human being and a better partner and all of that. So that
yes,
part is there. You also mentioned purpose and ambition, and I think
yes,
that would still be there for you. And
100%.
the thing that will save you is the thing that you put in here, which is character.
Yes, yes,
You know,
absolutely.
almost always with a woman, it's the most important thing. Character. It's all under the umbrella of trustworthy. This
Hmm.
person's word means something. If they say they're going to pick us up at the hospital after our procedure, they're going to be there, right? So all of that's under the umbrella of trustworthy. And wouldn't we rather be single forever than partner with somebody who doesn't have integrity, honesty, good character? That to me is way more important. I love how you're not saying, well, he has to be 6'2" or taller. You didn't tell me that.
No, and that's the thing is I don't think I've ever really, I mean, of course we want to be attracted to the person, but I've experienced some really beautiful people in my life, in work relationships and friend relationships and love relationships. And I am really just, people are like, I love what people look like on the inside. That means more to me than anything because, hey, I can put on fake eyelashes and fake hair, and I know how to create a mask. I know how to look good if I want to.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can't change. Well, you are who you are inside.
Yeah.
And I just, I know I've got some girlfriends are like, well, he's got to be over 6 foot and tall and a provider. And hey, when you've got the right partner in your life, you guys will become the best together. You'll look good together. And I mean that like physically, because you'll want to encourage each other to be healthy. You'll want to join forces and provide for both of each other together.
Very good. And I'm very happy that you're in Southern California now, which is where my community is based. So, yeah, maybe we'll have a chance to do some introductions together, which would be really amazing. And keep your eyes open for my community where you are,
Of
because
course.
most of my people are north of you. And I love to cover all of Southern California. There aren't any, there's really a lack of affordable, reliable, honest dating agencies and matchmakers. It's always about the money first. And
Mm.
I'm the opposite. I forget to make money half the time. But
I'm right there with you.
it's,
Hey,
you know,
we give, and this is just like helping people with love. Like, my goodness, we get to be paid for this, right? So it's such a beautiful thing. I love love. My dog is over here trying to love me, but I love love, and I love what you do, Julie. You're bringing people together, you're learning about them, and you're intentional when you pair people up. It's such a beautiful way to help us find love, us that are single. And so I support you, and I'm I'm ready to kind of put Southern California on the map and bring some more people your way. But
send them all to me. We'll take care of them. And whether they spend money or not is always a secondary issue. I want people of good character who are sincere about finding relationship and doing dating well. I'm really passionate about people taking that space in between relationships and using it as an opportunity to grow and learn and create new friendships. I love hearing that you've got some good girlfriends. There was a goofy book written a while ago, Why Men Marry Some Women and Not Others. Horrible title.
hmm,
But there's titles are meant to sell books, not really
sure.
to be about.
Yes.
But one of the things that they mentioned was that the women who ended up married, who were chosen for marriage, there were women who had good, solid relationships with other women. They had
Hmm.
sustained relationship with people.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing to develop. And one thing I love to do with the people who are in my boot camp is to help them get some single gal pals. And for
Mm.
guys, goodness sake, join a men's club or men's group or something where you get on Zoom calls or you're in person and you're talking about these things, becoming more well versed in the language of love and communication.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
growth orientation element, we're usually going to be leading that part of the relationship. I
Hmm.
think
Right.
that I should be able to pull the rabbit out of the hat, and the guy's going to be good looking and he's going to be very successful and he's going to be charming and all this stuff. And he's going to have the same level of emotional availability and adept at communication that she is. Unlikely. We're probably going to lead it. And the healthy way to do it, I say, is to look for a threshold of willingness to engage in this domain.
Mhm.
And then we can train each other, groom each other, and learn
Yes.
how to be together, survive together, thrive together through the good times and the bad. It's not easy to do.
No, it's not. And I know I'm experiencing this right now, and I love, taking time for yourself after a relationship is important, but you also learn so much about yourself in a relationship. And that's what I've noticed is because as I've been single, and then dating, the things that were triggering for me before, like I'm learning them through now dating and learning them through relationships. So it's like I'm applying a lot of the healing that I've gone through into relationship. So as much as we want to take time for ourselves after relationship and heal, I think some what's been healing for me, has been just getting right back in, getting and keep meeting people, keep getting yourself out there, keeping your heart open, because when we close our hearts, we don't allow any of that to come through. And that's the same with, picking up a new hobby or girlfriends. Just keeping an open heart is I just something that I'm doing, and making sure that I'm practicing.
Starting with yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Can we
Yes.
keep an open heart with ourselves? Can we
Yes.
start there? Can we actually look in the mirror and love ourselves? It seems so silly that it's hard to do, but I know it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And so everybody who's listening, I want you to look in the mirror today and love on yourself from the inside out. Storey Pryor, thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate you sharing all of what's happened with you. And I'm going to get myself a pair of those ankle weights, and my legs are going to get sexier and sexier. Maybe my husband would even notice.
A new pair of legs on you.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard a lot today. I want you to go out there and transform me to we for yourself. Thanks for listening.